We'll upload this onto our website later. Hopefully everybody's filled out their census. Today we are super excited to tell you more about the Vital Signs 2018 release that we are working on remotely, trying to push it out to everybody to get information out. And so we're really excited to be able to release this to all of you today. We have a lot of really interesting things that are on our website that we're also going to give you a quick demo on. So just a little bit about who we are for those that are not familiar with the BNIA project. We are the Baltimore Neighborhood Partnership site for the National Neighborhood Partnership, which is hosted by the Urban Institute. And we basically are a learning network of other cities around the country on how to produce critical indicators for everybody to use in our neighborhoods. We've been around since 2000, so a pretty long history of been doing this work. And we issue our kind of signature project is the Vital Signs Report. We are on our 20th year of doing this, and this is the 18th edition. We issue over 110 indicators. We try to put out every indicator every year. It's not always possible for us to do that. And they cross over these 8 different topic areas. And our website, which again, we'll do a demonstration at the end, is a way to interactively use our indicators and access information for yourselves. So these trainings are meant for helping you do the kind of work that you want to do based on experience that we've had. Just to let you know that we're issuing it in stages because we're all working remotely. The BNIA staff was working remotely. And so today we're going to tell you about 2 chapters that we did finish, which is Children and Health, Family Health, and Crime and Safety. Now, even though there are only 2 chapters, only 2, I should say, we're super excited to show you that we are releasing those narratives in a fully interactive, what are called story maps. And I'll show you how that is something that you can access in the future that allows you to kind of read the report, but also interact with some of the data visualizations, which we're really excited about. In the past, it used to be a kind of hard copy report that you would download as a PDF. And so this is all new for us, and we're excited. We were planning on doing this anyway, so that actually worked in our favor. But we're going to show you what it looks like today. So even though we're, like I said, only issuing 2 chapters, these are the number of indicators that you're going to get this week. And then every week, we're going to give you a few more. So the first column is kind of everything around health and the wide variety of indicators that we prepare for the health section based on things that we know people have wanted to know. And on the right-hand side are kind of our crime-related indicators. So we have one new one so far that we're going to show you, which is number of overdose calls, which is from the 911 system. And basically walk you through kind of how we use this data to explore the relationship between things that we probably know about, even though there's a lot of indicators. The question is, how are these indicators related? So the number one indicator that we all care about with respect to kind of the ultimate state of health is, of course, life expectancy. And in life expectancy in Baltimore City in 2018 was 72.7 years on average, but there's unfortunately a pretty wide gap. And you can see on these maps, the darker the color, the more of that indicator there is. So that in this case means higher life expectancy. And the lower the shade, unfortunately, means low life expectancy. And so let's use these indicators to try and think up kind of from your own perspective, what might be impacting this kind of wide variety and gap in life expectancy. And that's what the indicators are meant to do. So one of the problems with kind of having a low life expectancy, the reason for that is because we unfortunately have high mortality rates at young ages. And so we do have mortality by age, which we work with our Baltimore City Health Department to get. And you can see, unfortunately, that map, the converse of the life expectancy map, is essentially this mortality by age, which is, between 15 to 24-year-olds, and such high rates in places like Pimlico and the Southwest Baltimore, which is correlated with a low life expectancy, high mortality at a young age, low life expectancy. The other things that are obviously correlated with life expectancy, unfortunately, is the overdose rate per 1,000 residents. And since this is a new indicator for us, we now know using 911 data that communities are calling about overdoses, and 7.7 overdoses per 1,000. And you can see what's new to us in terms of a pattern is kind of this southwestern kind of increase in overdoses out here in the southwest side. So if you are following us along on Twitter, you can take a poll of how you are being affected in your community. Our Twitter handle is just at BNIA JFI, and this is open for anybody to take to see, now that we have a sense of what's going on in communities, we'd love to know kind of how you're experiencing this in your area. Beyond life expectancy, beyond kind of those things that are related to life expectancy, obviously we know poverty is related to low life expectancy, having kind of a tougher experience with respect to economic poverty. And so we have indicators around TANF, and TANF use kind of is concentrated in some of our high poverty areas, which also unfortunately have that low life expectancy. TANF, we're obviously in a situation that we're in right now. These are some of the most vulnerable folks in the city having to deal with the COVID-19 crisis. And unfortunately, these are the places where we have our most vulnerable populations. We have lots of other indicators. These are some good news stories. We have teenage pregnancy. You can see some of the patterns of teenage pregnancy. We actually have high rates, which may surprise some of you, in the southeast side and down here in Brooklyn, Curtis Bay. So thinking about where we want to target teenage pregnancy related information. And then other indicators around the built environment. Here we have kind of where we have liquor store density outlets that might relate to health and community health. And then working with the Center for Livable Future at Johns Hopkins, we have kind of a prepared food and fast food density. You can see where that kind of might lead to low healthy food options. Again, something to think about right now. So crime and safety, just to give you an overview, the ultimate unfortunate thing that we all know about is the violent crime rates. We have such high rates in downtown Washington Village and the Old Town Middle East, so kind of right through the middle here. And, a wide disparity. So what might be leading to a violent crime rate? One of them, of course, is shootings, which is something that we are all tracking. You can see some of the kind of western side and a little bit here on the east there we have high rates of 911 calls for shootings where people are calling the police saying that they've heard something and they want some kind of a response. Unfortunately, those shootings lead to, in some cases, gun homicides. And of the 309 homicides that we registered in 2018, 88.6 of them were related to guns. And then you can see kind of where this is happening in the city as well. We also want to make sure that the data that we put out is something actionable that communities can actually track over time. So calling 911 is something that anybody can do in case they experience something. And so it's kind of a sign that people are calling for assistance. And in this case, this is for kind of things that might be leading to violent crime, like calls for narcotics, so drug-related activity that communities are seeing in their neighborhood. And then also things that you can do in your community is to make sure that things like you have proper lighting. We know that lighting is actually one of the key ways to eliminate kind of illicit behavior when it's dark. And it is pretty interesting for neighborhoods to start tracking where they have these kind of issues around streetlight outages. And if there's recurring streetlight outages over and over again in the same spot, that might be a sign that people are trying to do something illicit and they're actually on purpose, taking out their streetlights. So these are kind of some of the ways to look at some of our indicators. I'm going to go over to the website and show you how to actually interactively look at the data on your own. So everybody can see my screen? Hopefully, that's a yes. All right, so this is the new Vital Signs 18. That's what you're going to feature on the website when you go into the website. And you can look for indicators by community. If you know exactly which community you're interested in, you can go and look at vital signs by topic area, which is the way I'm going to do it. And if you really are just curious about a particular indicator, you can go ahead and go into that indicator. So again, we've focused in on the two new ways that we can look at data. I'm going to go into children and family health. And here, again, you can see all of the data that we have and the source that they come from, hopefully properly sourced. Just to show you kind of what we were looking at in terms of life expectancy, if you click on any one of the indicators, you'll get that and you'll see life expectancy for all of the neighborhoods. And you can copy, you can print, you can bring it into an Excel spreadsheet if you want to do your own kind of analysis right from here. You can see where all of the maps are that I mentioned before. You can see this whole map gallery. And then if you click on life expectancy itself, you'll be able to do some more data visualizations right here on looking at, again, that disparity. You can see kind of how different neighborhoods, kind of the relationship across different neighborhoods to life expectancy. These are all interactive as well. And then you can look at trends. So for example, if you wanted to see kind of, unfortunately, you know, Baltimore City life expectancy has been going down, unfortunately, again, mostly related to that mortality rate. But you can see that not every neighborhood is experiencing that same downward trend. And you can kind of look and see kind of where different neighborhoods are experiencing different trends. So that is kind of quick ways that you can interactively use our data. Last week, we actually went over a little bit more about how to do this. So if you wanted to look at the video for last week, same idea. If you just wanted to read the Vital Signs report, if you come up here into Vital Signs and click on Full Report, what we are so excited to let people know is that we now have these fully interactive ways of looking at the Vital Signs report. So now, if you wanted to read more about children and family health, this becomes something that you can interactively look at, and you can see all of the sections that we have. So if you wanted to go straight to kind of after our little introduction about what the topic is, you can see now the overdose calls, and actually interactively, while you're reading, interactively look at some of the data, so that while you're reading, you have a sense of kind of what we've written versus kind of what you personally want to look at. And then all of the data that we mentioned, there's kind of a write-up associated with it. And if you did go to the built environment, which is kind of all the way at the bottom, you can start to see other written things that, for example, the Center for Livable Future gave us when they sent us the prepared food indicator. Then if you wanted, so this is just family health. This is easy reading. Maybe now that, you know, we're all at home, we can all kind of take a look at reading this. And then if you wanted to go to crime and safety, eventually we'll have all of our chapters available here. The same idea, there's kind of interesting ways to look at some of the data. We have these widgets that are involved here, so you can look at the crime rate. I know this seems like forever ago, but the crime rate actually did go down between 2017 and 2018. And then unfortunately, 2019, which we haven't processed yet, is back up. But this is the same idea that you can start looking at things interactively using our story maps. So we'd love to hear more about, you know, how you guys like this new way of reading chapters. We'd love to get more feedback on that. And again, maybe at the end, we're going to have a Twitter poll for you to kind of access that too. This is all part of an open data portal for those of you that want to access data in a more interactive way. than what our regular website does. We have a whole new interactive open data portal. And if I can turn it over to Cheryl, I think I can turn it over. I can, you can unmute yourself, right, Cheryl?
Yes, I'm unmuted. Can you hear me? Hello?
I can't hear you. Can everybody else
hear
hear
you.
Cheryl?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, okay, great.
So Seema, would you, well, I don't know, if Seema can't hear me, I was going to say, would she like to drive or? So yes, as Seema mentioned, we have put out this brand new open data portal. So I think probably 2 or 3 years ago, we started using the ArcGIS online open data portal to share out our vital signs indicators. And over the past couple of years, we had just put out a year of data at a time and for each of the topic areas. What's new for this year is that we have created downloadable data sets that are specific to an indicator for all years that we have available. So for instance, if you want to download our overdose data, since that's a brand new indicator, we only have that available for 2018. Conversely, if you'd like to download something like a violent crime rate, you would get that for all of our 55 communities for 2010 through 2018. So there's a couple different ways of accessing this information from our open data portal. So the first would be to search for an indicator by name. So we have a little search box there where you can type out a keyword. I don't know what will be a good example, something we'd like to take a look at. Seema, you can start typing something. The other option would be to hit one of those little icons that are representative of our 8 different topic areas. So for life expectancy, you can either type that out or hit the health icon to pull up all of that data. So since Seema hit the health button, you can see we've got 19 indicators that we've looked at since 2010 around children and family health. So this is a way to just see the data that we have available. And then as you can see here, we've got obviously the title of the indicator and then a little bit of a description and definition of what these indicators are. So you can make sure you're grabbing and opening up the right thing.
Do you want me to click on anything?
Sure.
Okay. So clicked on temporary assistance for needy families.
So when you click on one of these, you'll have a little map at the top. So that shows the 55 communities for Baltimore. That map itself is clickable. So if you wanted to click on a community, it would pull up a little, you can see there the little tooltip that says the name of the community, and then also a little pop-up that has the data for that community for all years that we have available. You can also search for a location in that upper right-hand corner if you're not entirely sure what community you might be in. You can also, as you can see there, zoom to your location. So if you have location settings turned on, if you're using a mobile device or on your computer, you can do that as well. So from this main overview tab, as I mentioned, we've got a definition for these indicators, so you can kind of see what the indicator means. And we have a little more button to expand that description that will also show you the source of our data sets and then the years that we have that data available. Underneath attributes, you can see the fields that are in these data sets. So in this case, obviously, we've got our community statistical area names. And then for this data set, we started tracking it in 2011. So we've got 2011 through 2018 data. These year buttons are actually clickable. So we're going to take it back. Seema, if you want to click on one, take it back all the way to high school or middle school math class. So these are histograms. So a histogram is something that kind of visually shows on a chart the frequency of something. So in this case, we've got our 55 communities. So on the left-hand side, that count, that is a number of communities. And then on the bottom, that's a particular year. So for 2018, you can see the breakout by community and how these communities kind of go into these different buckets. So again, we're looking at this TANF data. So in this case, this is a percentage. So you have a larger, in that smallest bucket, you have 11 community statistical areas that have 0 to 2% of that community receiving TANF benefits. So that's just kind of what that means. It's a good way of just looking at the data and seeing the overall distribution across the communities. So right here from this view, we have on the left, or excuse me, not the left-hand side, the right-hand side, we've got two little buttons there. So download. If you click on the download button, that will take you to a little drop-down where you can download this data either as a CSV spreadsheet, KMLs, that's an online mapping file, and then also a shapefile if you're into the desktop GIS mapping. Next to that, we've got a little button that is API. So if you want to make your own visualizations using this data set, we've got GeoJSON and the API link right there where you can just directly plug into our data. So that is kind of the overview tab. We also have the data tab. So if you click on that data tab, that'll give you a preview of what that spreadsheet looks like. So you can see the fields that we have available and then the values for the year. So sometimes it might take a little second. So rather than having a little pinwheel, we've got a little square going around. But so what's kind of cool about this is that it allows you to, once the data loads, you can click on any of those field names. So community statistical area, any of the years. And when you click on them, it will sort the data smallest to largest. You click it again, largest to smallest. And then you can even do some filtering. So we have that little icon there. So some people say it looks like a flashlight pointing upwards or almost like a little funnel, but that allows you to put in some ranges. So like, for instance, if you wanted to filter some of the data for this % of families receiving TANF to see if there's any communities that are, let's say, under 2%, that's a filter that you could put in there. And then under that download button on the right, you have the option of, do you want to download the full file of all 55, or do you just want to download that filtered view, which might only be a couple communities? You can also then do a filtered API. So if you're interested in having a custom filter for this data to plug into your own web maps or visualizations, you can do that. Oh, it looked like it finally came up. That's very strange.
But now I lost the map.
No.
I don't know what happened to my browser.
Well, so
sorry about that.
It's all good. It's all good. So, so that's the data that is kind of in there. So this is a way for people to access the data, to either pull it down, to do your own mapping, to do some of your own statistical analysis. But it's incredibly helpful too if you're also trying to build in your own web dashboards, if you want to make your own story maps, if you want to make some of your own visualizations of, rather than trying to recreate the wheel, we have this data that people can kind of point to already. I do want to also toss out there, so we have been using ArcGIS at BNIA for many, many years, and we're so excited to be able to use some of these capabilities that come with ArcGIS Online. And so I don't want to completely put myself out of business, but I feel I must mention that if you are a student, if you are with a nonprofit, you can sign up for your own arcgis.com account. So that's arcgis.com. And with that account, you can create some of your own story maps. So story maps, again, that's a format that we're using for our indicator narratives, our vital signs write-up. And you can also make some of your own maps. So let's say you really hate my purple maps, you can go crazy and make some green maps instead. But of course, using our data. And then one last thing that I wanted to mention, well, Seema is hovering over the API Explorer, so you can go ahead and click on that. So if you are kind of like the fun tech nerd, yes, you can absolutely just take this data, kind of grab the fields that you need, and kind of plug and play into any visualizations you have going on. Seema, I just wanted to mention, could you click over to the Overview tab again? On the left?
Yep.
So, and then scroll down just a little bit. So once you have already created an ArcGIS online account and you want to pull in some of this data, one thing that you can do is from this page itself, under About on the right-hand side, you have a couple links there so you can create a web map or create a story map. Those links only work if you have an ArcGIS online account. And from that data view, if you are already signed in, you can hit that Create a Web Map button, and that will automatically pull in this data set that you're looking at. And we do have some metadata, so that is attached to this data set. So we will let folks use this data, but of course, if you're using it, we always want to try to make sure that people have that metadata so that they know that BNIA created this, here's where we got the data, this is what it means, and of course that little link back to us in case people have any questions about any of the data sets. So that's about it. Right now through this open data portal, because it's brand new, we have been pushing out a lot of our data. So even though we just have the children and family health and crime and safety data sets published through 2018, we don't want anyone to feel left out if education's your thing, or if you're really interested in some of the arts and culture indicators. We have data published through 2017 on the portal. So I can't remember the exact number now off the top of my head, but I think we have now published about 170 different indicators over the years since 2010. So all of these are available. So that's in a quick nutshell our open data portal. I do see a question from Timmy.
Timmy wanted to know, how do we get there? So let me go back to our main website, Timmy. So I'm going to just go back to our regular website, which is just bniajfi.org. And there's a couple ways to get to our open data portal, and then to the specific vital signs data portal through our general open data portal. One is right here on the quick links when you first come in, open data portal. If you clicked on that, or if you download this, or you drop down the vital signs menu, you can also see the open data portal. There's a couple of other places where you can get it under resource library, under map gallery. We actually have a bunch of new ways to look at data these are all pretty new ways to look at data. These are the story maps that we mentioned. These are the map galleries that we showed you before, how to look at the interactive mapping around what's the difference between a community and a neighborhood and a census tract. And different ways to kind of access that data. But let me just click on the open data portal itself for questions, and to show you how to get to our general open data portal, because we have other open data besides vital signs. And then once you click on the vital signs, you'll get back to the view that we were looking at. Hopefully that helps.
And
so we are happy to take, oh, sorry, go ahead, Cheryl.
Oh, I was also just going to say, and I'm trying to make sure that we go overboard with keywords. So if you are doing some online mapping or just even some desktop mapping, and you want to pull in some vital signs data, that you can do a keyword search, connect to ArcGIS Online, just do like a keyword search for like BNIA, and then violent crime, that you would be able to pull in that data and have that made available to you. So as I said, very excited to have this new indicator view out there so that you can start looking at some of these trends over time. Because before, if you wanted to compare, say, the life expectancy from year to year, you would have to download a couple different files. You would have to grab health from 2017 and then 16 and 15 and do a little bit of work yourself. Now, all years are available for each indicator.
So I'm going to just stop the recording and then we'll upload this for people to see later. But we're happy to answer any questions.